Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday night, we are finally back together as a trio over here. I am your host, as always, Timuchin in Chicago, and that's right. Here's your daily or weekly weather update. It's been raining all goddamn day over here. Which I don't normally mind, but this means I gotta cut the grass again. I thought we were done with this shit, but I guess not. So I will have to go to that with after all this rain. Bickler is back in town and back in action. What's going on, Bickler?
Happy Monday. Happy to be back.
You look happy. Montana really, brought out the color in you. Gally
that's what
as always.
That's what a bachelor party in Montana will do for me.
He's not getting away with intros. I figured we'd get to.
Let's not get to it. How about that?
Gally, what's happening?
Yeah, weather sucks in New England as well, I gotta say. But I get out of here tonight. Kelly and I fly down to Florida tomorrow morning for a little warm weather, few days, little retreat. So we got to get through this show with you two fools. Got to figure out what I have to do still to work tonight so I can get on a plane tomorrow morning. And then we'll get the hell out of Dodge for a few days.
Must be nice. People living the good life over here, I swear. Okay. Well, now that the trio is back, the favorite segment is back. So we will do that favorite segment. I got two questions this week, two different trivias. The first one is for Bickler especially. Bickler, what does one do at a bachelor party in Montana? And go.
We saw a national park. We got stuck in a casino way too late. We watched football starting at 10 a.m., which involved bourbon shots. We met a random firefighter on Main Street who ended up actually just bar crawling with us for like 2 days. I think he may or may not have lost a relationship over it. I'm not sure. Trying to think. I think that was it. I mean, it was a lot of football. It was a lot of, I guess the first day we have these little like ring things on the app, and the owner of the cabin like let us know that there is activity on the cam, and it was a straight up mountain line in the driveway. So that was probably as close as I cared to come to the West of the Wildlife, but we did see some cool stuff. Saw tons of elk, a lot of buffalo, some moose. It was an amazing trip.
So are you walking around these animals like a freaking live zoo? Meanwhile, the mountain lion is like making his menu in the background, or what's happening?
The other ones we saw like just driving through, like we went through Yellowstone and then through like southern Montana. But that one, that was a little like, thankfully when the kitty cat was home, we were gone. We had driven like 45 minutes into Bozeman, which by the way, you can like have 11-mile trip and it takes like 2.5 hours because like the mountain roads and stuff. It's wild, dude. I'm being dramatic, but obviously, but it's wild how like I can see why there are no speed limits in Montana essentially, because it's wide open territory in parts. And then in other parts, you're going 10 miles an hour anyway.
Huh. See, Gally, now we know. So next, I guess if we were going to do like I know right now, the more you know, we were going to do like an American Scouser get together. Now Montana becomes a possible destination, perhaps.
It's beautiful. And they have Bozeman, Montana, little plug here. Bozeman, Montana has this bar called the Cat's Paw, and it is one of the most legitimately awesome dive bars I've ever been. Probably the best steak and eggs I've ever had. And you can just walk in and pick up a house poker game every night, cash games going on. It was awesome. It was a really cool place.
All right. Book it, Gally. We're heading to Montana. So, actually,
Cat's Paw.
I don't know if it's too late to change your tickets. Screw Florida. Just head to Montana and go to this dive bar with Kelly. See how she likes it.
She probably would love every part of it except for the fact that she would realize quickly that they have a cash game poker game going, which probably meant I wasn't going to leave until they hosed me down or made me. So I would have walked in and everyone would have been like, all right, and Gally's not going to leave this bar until we force him out, or the call for like boarding now on the boarding pass.
Facts. Okay, well, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to some actual trivia, the really good hardcore stuff that we know Bickler's not going to get right. Okay, so we're going away to Wolves as the next fixture. Last time we were there, we lost 3-0. The 3 trips before that, we won all with the same score. 1-0. 3 games back to back at Wolves. Who were the goal scorers in these games? We gave the last one to Bickler. I'll give you this one. Gally, take a swing at it first. Who do you have? 1-0 wins back to back to back. I can even give you 2021. Both of them are 2021. And then the other one is the FA Cup game last January. Well, actually, this January, I guess. Sorry.
I know one in the regular season. I'm fairly certain one was the legend that is Divock right at the end of a match. I think it was in stoppage time, winner 1-0.
That goes without saying when you say Divock that it's going to be somewhere around there in the stoppage time.
And the funny part was I was actually on a plane that morning as well, flying in because it was an early morning match. And I remember jumping up and hitting my head when they scored because we were on the runway waiting to get off. And then I quickly realized there were cool people on the plane because like 5 other people were watching it at the same time and like got up and were like, yeah. So one was Divock. Was Harvey Elliott one, and I'm going to say the other was Mane.
Okay, good guesses. Bickler, you've been in deep thought over there.
I mean, the only thought that I was having is I don't know how people remember this shit. I can't even remember what happened last week. Part of that is just because I don't want to. The other part is probably down to recreational drug use. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know how people do this. I remember the Origi one. I don't remember any of the other two. And for some reason, I keep thinking this was. I originally was thinking this is one of those games that Carvalho popped up and scored one, but I don't think it is. I'll just say really super obvious things that could be possible. I'll go with Firmino in one, which I don't think is right. I'll go with Firmino and I'll go with Mo, which I don't think is right either.
Divock was right. That last minute one. Elliott was right in the FA Cup game. The other one was Jota. Was the other one, the very first one. I think that's January 2021 or something like that. Not too shabby. Gally's in rare form over here. You know, it's odd that, I do remember the Divock goal, for example. I remember the Elliott's goal as well. I could not picture the Jota goal at all. Well, let me ask you guys this, totally off the scheduled programming over here, whatever that is, if it is scheduled. But we were talking about this with Matush this morning. It was right after the show. In our post-match chats, we were talking about this, that Trent has assisted, this is to be confirmed, but it does make sense, every position, the only player to assist every position on the field, because he was the one who had to Alisson as well, in terms of he was the one who took that corner kick. So my question was, I could not recall his assists to Robertson. Do you guys remember those assists? Guy knows Bickler is not. Bickler is what day is it?
No, I do.
Really?
I don't remember the match it was, but I remember it was just essentially Trent roasted down the right channel and swung a deep cross in, and it cleared everybody. And it was one of the few times Robbo went back post and didn't put it in the parking lot.
I was just gonna say I feel like it probably flew across the box and bounced off his face and went in. But I also
he was sliding.
Has anybody seen his goal the other day for Scotland?
No.
Robertson's goal. Oh, you got to go see it. It is literally, guys, it is everything that happens when he wears blue. Because if he was wearing red, that thing would still be in orbit. But it's like a half volley, waist level, and he puts it top right bin, cross his body. It is hilarious, and they're like Robbo, oh Robert, and they're yelling on Sports Center Robertson, and I was just like, these people have no idea what a collector's item you just are witnessing right here.
Yeah, he's had 3 different assists to Robertson. We were trying to figure it out. We couldn't picture any of them actually, but thanks to technology, we Googled them. One against was Arsenal. Damn man, I can't. One against Tottenham. The 2-1 leads is the one. I can't remember recall the third one now, but yeah, he had 3 different assists directly to Robertson, which is shocking. But I think that's like a really cool stat by itself that he has assisted every single position on the field.
Cool.
I would have honestly, it kind of shocks me that Robertson has 3 goals. I can remember 2 goals, but if you had asked me for the over/under at goals by Robertson for Liverpool, I don't know that I would have put it a lot higher than 3. So the fact that Trent has 3 assists to him is pretty impressive in itself.
My initial thing, and actually, Mateus thought the same thing. The Newcastle game, where he comes around the corner with the header from a cross coming in from the right hand side, but that was Sadio curving that ball in with the left. And then I know he scored against Burnley in the title winning year. Those are the only goals I really remember out of Robertson, to be honest with you. The other ones must have been his Trent assist.
Yeah. Trent must have got the assist then in the Aston Villa one, because doesn't Robertson score with his head?
That's the game I was referring to. Villa. That's Mane making the cross from the right hand side.
So Mane makes the cross from the right, and then Mane scores the game winner at the death.
From the corner kick afterwards. Yeah. See, we can't remember everything, Bickler. When you try hard, Bickler's like, I don't remember anything. Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we were really worried about this whole thing overall with Van Dijk, and it is only 1 game, which I think, based on what we saw, we all thought it was probably going to be a lot longer than that. We were thinking 3 to 5 games. Gally, do you think it's, obviously he was going around the apology tour. Sounds like he kind of handled the post-action a lot better and didn't like double up on it and meet him after the match in the hallway and like chew them out again or something like that and apologize instead. Do you think that's like, is it the reputation? Is it how he handled it that made it 1 game, or is it just they don't want to make a huge thing out of it because it didn't get physical? Really, it was more verbal abuse.
I think, honestly, the way he handled it the day of the match, from all accounts, he basically took a shower, realized, holy bleep, I was an ass out there, and this is going to get a lot worse. And maybe even the PR team came and talked to him to let him know, like, we got you on video calling the guy a bleeping clown and telling him he doesn't know what he's talking about. He supposedly was even worse to the 4th official on the way off the pitch. So I think the fact that he handled it the way he did, the fact that he doesn't carry a reputation of being like an overly demonstrative player towards officials, though it did seem like the match day official was quick to write in his report, like, abused by Liverpool captain. Like, he made it very clear to make the point of actually writing I was abused. So I think there was a statement being made, and I think he's lucky, in my opinion, to escape with just 1 game. And I think his personality and his approach to it helped him a great deal.
What do you think, Bickler? Reputation, apology, bit of both?
Slightly surprised. I think it's pretty fortunate that we only saw 1 game there. It's not like it's pretty common that I think that we don't see punishments like doled out as severely as we think they should across the board, right? Just never seems to happen to Liverpool, though. So, that's why I was a little bit surprised we only got the 1 game. I think Gally's right. I think the fact that he got out ahead of this so early and so publicly, I think really helped. I do imagine him walking off the pitch and like the team's solicitor and coming in behind him and shutting the door. But either way, I think he got out in front of it. I think he handled it well. I am surprised he didn't get more than 1 match, but we'll take it. That's missing Wolves is okay compared to what it could have been.
Yeah, if you look at the schedule, really, and if I told you, hey, these are the games in the league, pick a game out of the next 5 games, Wolves game is probably the one you would pick. We're going to take a look at the schedule a little bit later on, along with the Europa schedule over here. But does that ease the concerns a little bit, Bickler, that we had over the center back action, like seeing the Europa group and now knowing that we're only missing him only for 1 game? Does that ease the concerns a little bit? Because let's face it, we were in a kind of like a full panic mode when we were afraid that it was going to be like 3 to 5 games.
It doesn't for me, but I think that's only because my valuation of Verge right now is so low, to be perfectly honest. I just think I mean, it's nice that we don't have to worry about him being out an extended period of time, but I think that what makes this unit fragile, what makes it shaky to me is their durability. So, which is not predictable in right. So I think for me it's thin regardless still. So I wouldn't say I'm grateful it's not like it obviously doesn't hurt it, but I'm grateful it's not worse than it is. But I still have that underlying fear for sure.
How about you, Gally? I mean, we kind of talked about it last week, and we talked in the morning show as well. Like in terms of did the defense play better overall and keep a clean sheets, mainly due to Van Dijk not being there, not because of the player Van Dijk is, but not having Van Dijk over there. Everybody kind of paid an extra 10. It's almost like being down to 10 men, where everybody gives a bit more care and attention, knowing there's nobody to bail them. That even though Van Dijk is not the old Van Dijk who can bail out anybody, old habits die hard. When you're used to somebody bailing you, kind of play accordingly if he's still out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might play into it. I think a lot of it played into the fact that Aston Villa just didn't really show up and played poor. And, from the moment that they had the first injury to Diego Carlos, and then their entire tactics were changed when they tried to get away from the back three that they were set up to play under. I don't think that helped Diaby anything. I don't think that really helped Ollie Watkins. He ended up being even more isolated up top. So I think part of it had to do with the way Villa played for part of the reason we kept a clean sheet. I don't want to take anything away from Gomez, though. I think Gomez deserves a lot of credit. I think he's played really well in the amount of time that he came in between the substitute appearance against Newcastle being forced on the pitch. And then I thought he played really well against Villa outside of one point where he got his feet wrong, fell on his ass. But that can happen to anybody. We've seen it happen to Virgil a couple times already this year. So I think the biggest issue I have is the fragility of the back line, to kind of steal from Bickler's sentiment, but it's almost the fact that we rely on Konate to be so much and he can't be relied upon. Like, we make a lot of jokes on this podcast about Thiago and other guys who are always, hurt. And let's be honest, the only reason Konate doesn't have his name above one of the training tables is I'm not sure he would fit on any of the training tables. So his name would have to be above 3 of them.
Is Gomez your number 3 right now?
For me personally, he is. He is, but he was, if you guys remember, he was who I thought was number 3 going into the season. And clearly Klopp felt that Matip still offered a better option. For me, if we're going to keep playing this formation we're playing with Trent doing what he's doing, then Gomez is 3 because he offers better cover on the right-hand side. That being said, it doesn't sound like Trent's going to be ready to play on Saturday. So we literally might be going to Wolves with the kid Matip and Gomez at the back, which is kind of scary.
That is a little scary because I don't know if Konate is going to be back. Obviously, you don't find out these details till he was supposed to be, but being ready and being back are not the same things. To be able to start, at least, is he going to be able to give you 90 minutes? Who's your number 3 center back right now, Bickler?
It's probably Gomez, but I don't know if I'm starting. So I don't think the drop off between Gomez and Matip is that far yet.
Fair.
And I think so in that scenario, I'm starting Matip because who's backing up Trent if something happens?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you need somebody to come in at right back, you have that ability. You don't have that with Matip on the bench. So I think that's probably where I'm laying on that and where that makes sense to me. But yeah, it's thin though. It doesn't feel great.
It just feels like, judging by just the Villa game, when Trent came back, it felt like Matip was pushed even wider than we see Konate being pushed. And if that's the case, you probably want Gomez over there because you could tell Matip was not that comfortable that wide. Even when he was pushing up, he does not like being that close to the sideline, it looked like. So if that's how we're going to play, probably Gomez is a better fit anyway. But I've always liked Matip being able to take advantage of that space. But when you push Trent into the middle, that is not a possibility anyway because it becomes too risky. There were a couple of times where he was like doing his old Matip and then had to stop himself and come back just literally mid-run, be like, oh shit, I'm all the way over here, and gave it to Mo and ran right back, because I'm assuming he was told no adventures today. So that kind of like takes away, let's face it, it's probably the biggest strength right now. I mean, it's not like he has the speed. I mean, he knows the system, but aside from that, really, his biggest strength is being able to take advantage of that space between the lines. And when you take that away, if there's no adventure, there's no Matip, if you will. Matip has to stay back to keep from getting gas too soon, says Brian. And that could be another thing too. I mean, he has not been able to finish the 90 minutes. So maybe it was one of those where we need you out there, so conserve your energy kind of thing. I took it more as, I mean, Brian might be right. So I guess I'll ask you, Gal, you think it was more about control your pace, control your minutes, we need you out there as long as possible? Or is it more about pulling in Trent so far in that stay back, dude, because Trent is already out of position?
I think... Yeah, I think it has to be the latter more than it is the former. But I think there is a little bit to what Brian's saying. Like, I'm sure Klopp is saying, we need you to conserve your energy. You know, we got a 17-year-old kid on the bench to basically give us cover here. And if anything happens, and then, you know, in that same match, you end up losing Trent. So you end up like really needing the guy to go and give you everything there. So I think that the bigger part is the tactics have changed to the point that the space that you and I like to see him exploit isn't there for him anymore. And if he doesn't have that space, once he goes into it, he doesn't have the quick twitch speed to make up for the ground that he has to cover. So if we're going to play this new formation, and you know, I believe we're going to, like, I'm coming out of this, both the signing Gravenberch and what I saw and the decisions Klopp made against Villa, just seems to me like he is going to stick with Trent tucked inside. Heck, he did it even when Gomez was covering for Trent. Yeah. He didn't even go to the 4-3-3 then. I feel like this is a lot of writing on the wall that we're going to see an awful lot more of McAllister deep and a rotation of Gravenberch and Jones playing, you know, the opposite side of the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what we figure out. I mean, I want to get to that now in terms of like the schedule and see like who fits where in terms of. So once this international break is over, until the next international break, which is in October. So we're coming over here. So if you ignore this weekend's game, these are the games that we have. You have 2 of the Europa games. You have a EFL Cup game. And then obviously on the right-hand side, it ends up being like the league games. Bickler, do you almost make 2 different lineups looking at this and play them accordingly? If so, who's going where?
Yeah, I probably do. And I probably rotate way more than we'll see and way more than most people feel comfortable. To me, you prioritize the league and everything else is secondary right now. And I think that this team is good enough and deep enough to advance the rounds where you can start prioritizing Europa if it goes to knockouts, and EFL if you make it deep. But honestly, going into these Europa and these EFL Cup matches here, I'm probably playing the 17-year-old in the back. I really am. If you think he's good enough to be in first team, I think these are those opportunities and where you really develop those types of players, right? And same thing goes for, these are key matches for Doak, for Harvey, for Curtis Jones, all these guys that like, you know, are sort of deep-seated in the minutes. And I think this is a real lot. I mean, we look at this, we'll probably say this is the biggest opportunity for the kid. And for Doak, I think it's the biggest opportunity for Curtis Jones to really put his foot down and into more of a leadership role.
Who are you, if anyone, taking from like who regularly plays into those games on the left-hand side there, Bickler?
Who am I taking into those on the left-hand side?
Yeah, I mean, who are you okay with, you know, using from your perhaps regular 11? Because we've always said a couple of like experienced guys or higher profile guys to kind of lead the gang, if you will. Yeah,
I probably rotate between. I mean, if Thiago has some sort of fitness, he could provide some leadership. I don't know. I think these are probably opportunities for Szoboszlai to pick up additional minutes. Like, he's young enough. He's got the legs for it. He's got the endurance for it. I think you probably rotate whether it's Gravenberch, McAllister. I think you probably use a little bit of rotation through there. But I wouldn't put it on any one player. I mean, I think this is great opportunities for Jota to pick up some extra minutes in here. And I think, really, I think we really find out what is the plan with Darwin. What are we doing with Darwin? Do we see him as a starter? Are we giving him these EFL like matches as a starter up top centrally, or are we going to really carve out a role in which he comes off the bench as a game changer, as like a late match sort of change of pace addition into the squad? So I mean, I think there's some options here, right? And it's really going to depend on how the manager sees some of these players' roles on this team going forward, which I think we're still like sort of feeling out in some ways with some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Gally this weekend is going to be obviously important, because whatever you see there is going to determine, for the most part, right, who you're going to see on the other ones, thinking there will be a lot of rotation. I mean, I'll ask the same question to you in terms of like taking someone or some players to kind of like lead the line. I mean, you would think, I'm assuming by then we're talking another 10 days over here, like Bajcetic should be ready to go, like maybe starting that role there. But that really depends on what Endo does too. If you're not starting Endo in the Premier League, you might use him there. I get to see Endo in action tomorrow playing against Turkey because they're doing like a friendly. Obviously, they just pummeled Germany over there, got their coach sacked and everything. But who do you want? Not want, I guess, but who do you see kind of like leading that second group, if you will, in the Europa or the EFL Cup?
Well, I do agree with Paul. I think there are 4 players in particular that these matches mean everything to, like their season. I think it's Kelleher, Tsimikas, Doak, and Elliott. Like, I think that's one player at each kind of level of the pitch that will probably start every one of the group stages of the Europa League. Like, I could see them starting all of them. I could see Endo getting a lot of minutes there. I think it's also probably the easiest place to bed in Gravenberch. And then maybe you play Jones a little bit more from the start in the league, just having that understanding. I know you guys aren't going to love hearing this. Like, Klopp really was like raving about, he actually made a comment that he thought Darwin was twice as good against Villa than he was against Newcastle in his small little cameo. Like, he thought he was great against Villa, and he had no problem with the misses. He's like, you just keep getting in those positions, we know this guy will score goals. And he did create it. And I think we're going to see a lot more of Darwin through the middle. I honestly believe that these Europa League games are Cody Gakpo's to lead the line. And, if you rated our 5 attacking players right now over the first 4 matches, and it's unfair to Gakpo, he was asked to play out of position twice.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting dropped when we went down to 10 men and then benched for the Villa game. But he hasn't played great. He hasn't been playing well for his country. He's not creating chances, and he's not really putting those chances he has on frame. He's the one who really needs to kind of pick up and get going. And I think those starts in the Europa League against little weaker competition might be what jumpstarts his season and gets him going, because we all know what he can offer. So I wouldn't be shocked at all to see a little bit of Gakpo and Jota with some Doak sprinkled in, and then a little bit more of Darwin through the league for the foreseeable future. I'm not saying it's going to last that way, but I think that's what we're going to see to start.
I mean, while this is what we want to probably see in an ideal case scenario, Bickler, do you think we will actually see that rotation? Because there has been hesitance in the past, but especially in the Europa, you would think even an out-of-sync Liverpool might struggle in a game here or there just because of like a stupid error or lack of concentration or whatever. But regardless of the lineup you put out there, it feels like against this competition they should do well.
Yeah, and if you're asking me if I really think that we'll see Mo sit 2 or 4 matches, the answer is obviously no. So I mean, we're just talking shite really when we talk about 2 teams, right? Like, it makes sense to me, right? But are we going to logistically see it? Like.
And that's what I'm wondering. Like, we want to see it, but will we see it?
Well, I want to see it, but I mean, I've seen our lineups when we play dead rubbers in Europe before. So I mean, we'll see what happens. It makes sense to me. This squad is good enough in general to go deep in Europe, like at the Europa level. And I think it will be deeply disappointing if we don't, just because I think this team, even though the priority lays in the league still, I think this team needs to make deep European runs just based on our heritage and our tradition and what kind of experience it provides to the young kids in this team that are really the core of it now.
I mean, you would think it's almost like we would approach it, Gally, like a FA Cup or a League Cup or something like that. Go as far as you can with the rotation, but once shit starts getting serious, maybe start playing your regular starters, and by then you'll know how the league is going anyway, and if you need to make a decision there.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know it's early doors here on the EFL, but when you really look at how the EFL is shaken out in the draw in the next round, with I think Chelsea and City drawing each other, Arsenal drew a Premier League side, Tottenham's out of it. I mean, this thing is quickly opening up to kind of give you a run in. If you can go get that win against Leicester, you get them at home. If you can pick up a victory there, you are getting into a later stage. It gets, the EFL Cup gets really quick, and we all know it's the League Cup, and no one cares till you get to the semifinal, and then you go win it. Well, I think all these games, and to Paul's point about the kids, the knockout rounds, I think anytime you can get in a tournament style formation or format, it is good for everyone who hasn't won one before. And I don't care if it's international games, if it's young kids, it's just good experience. It's good going on the road, learning how to travel, going overseas, going to different countries. And I think Bajcetic will get minutes, and I think we could see a mix. I think he could play along with Endo. I think Klopp has to mix and match his midfield to keep people fresh, and he's going to have to get comfortable with that. And I think it's really important that Thiago gets back fit, as much as it pains me to say it. Because he really does. I mean, right now it's the three we know, Gravenberch, and a lot of question marks after that. As good as Elliott's done as a sub, I don't see him being able to do it if he was asked to start 4 league matches in a row. So they really need to get Thiago back, in my opinion, so that Klopp has the ability to probably not mix and match, but he should.
Yeah, I think of all the names, he's probably the one that can kind of lead the gang, if you will, in those tournaments, take over the role that Milner used to play, in terms of this is how we do it, boys, kind of a thing. And, speaks 85 languages or whatever. And I think, you have a really strong front line. The rotation in the midfield will really rely on who you have. But like you guys mentioned, Gravenberch, probably Elliott, Bajcetic or Endo. I mean, you have a lot of names there. And that's why I want to go deep in. I mean, obviously, we want to win every single trophy, but I feel like in the past, whenever we felt like we had depth or we have these young guys that we want to see, we've kind of screwed ourselves by getting eliminated early and kind of cutting off the minutes of these guys. I know we're we don't care, it's a League Cup, but then you don't get to play It Cost Us. So you run Robo into the grounds and you don't get to even know what you're getting out of Costas, and several players like that. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And that's kind of why I want to make deep runs. And like you said, Gally, it kind of shapes up to be favorable for once, because we, normally get the away Premier League teams ourselves. So in the Europa, then, Bickler, when do you say, okay, time for the big boys to play?
Because
obviously, as we progress, we get some teams from the Champions League coming down as well.
I say probably quarters.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's an immediate thing, right? You probably bleed some more veteran players into there, depending on the competition and the lineups. I don't think it has to be a dramatic thing, But yeah,
you might not go full blown starting 11, but maybe go half at least or something like that. Get some more stability. Right. That's when you might see Mo out there and stuff like that to make his European appearances. So we're gonna talk. I want to talk about the league and obviously the upcoming Wolves game. But before we move on, I mentioned it earlier, and we're talking about Ando and Japan and stuff like that. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about with the Germany spot opening, Klopp and stuff like that, I don't think there is any basis to it. But what I wanted to ask you guys is, because we were talking about this morning, I personally do not even think, even though it might be a retirement gig for him like down the road, I don't personally even think, Gally, that Klopp is a good fit for a national team manager, just because it does not play to his strengths at all. He needs time with the boys and all that kind of stuff, where he's not going to get that.
No, this whole idea about Klopp being a national team manager, and to a lesser extent, you know, I see people all the time, like United States fans, saying like, "Get Mourinho for the United States national team." Mourinho would be a train wreck as a national team manager. Pep would be a train wreck as a national team manager. They're maniacal. They need day to day. They need to be there every day, working with guys. They want to run it like you know. Like they used to run sports in America, where they could tell the guys what time to go to bed at night and like what they're going to eat the next day. Like if they could have full control, they would take it. So you think that Klopp's just going to let all the German national team just go back and start playing however you play? Kai Havertz, you can play the way they play at Arsenal. You know, you guys can play the way they play at Bayern, and no flipping way, right? Like there's just no way. There's a reason that great club managers don't step down to coaching international football unless they want to step away from being a top level manager, which is why, honestly, it shocks me that Ancelotti is walking away from a really young and great Madrid team that seems to love playing for him to go be the freaking Brazil manager, where they're going to hate him even if he wins because he's not Brazilian. So like, it made no sense to me whatsoever why he would do that, because he's a great club manager. So I think this was all German papers. And if you read the reports now, they're already drawing up contracts for Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann is the next German manager. It's going to happen in the next 3 days.
I mean, Klopp is obviously going to pop up as one of the obvious managers. And I do think it's a matter of time. Eventually he will have his run at it. But I think, Bickler, it's more like a retirement gig for a manager, where you do it. Maybe that's why Ancelotti is doing it, for example, because day in and day out can get tiring and a lot more exhausting. This is probably, when you go from that to managing a national team, it's probably almost like a part-time gig. Like you're retired, but you're also greeting people in the entrance of Walmart's, coaching the national team, kind of a deal.
Yeah, I think this whole thing with Klopp and the national team seems to be born. Like, I feel like it's like the worst part of this discussion happens with Liverpool supporters. And I think it's because it's this whole thing about him going to the national team is born out of this weird simultaneous fear that he's going to leave us, in pride that he's good enough as a manager. Like he's one of the best German managers ever. Right. So I think there's like both sides of the coin in terms of like feelings and emotions on this. But like for me, it comes down to like the international gig. There's a reason like managers like Ericsson are great at it. Like the international manager, like management, that whole setup is like everything that Jurgen's bad at. It literally is everything he's not good at doing. Taking a bunch of personalities and a bunch of people from different systems, marrying him to one system in a very short time, and managing a lot of personalities. Like, he's a great man manager, but he's also really good at creating a culture through who he picks. And I don't think you get to do that at the international level, at least not for countries like Germany. So I really think this is just a moot point. I think we discuss it out of this weird sense of obligation and pride in him, and this weird unfounded fear that he's going to leave us for that.
And I think it just, I mean, I agree. It doesn't fit him in any way. And even if I if I looked at like a potential candidate, I'd be like, no, he really doesn't fit. If I'm like a German, I would not go for that, just because I don't think it fits his strengths. And here's another thing. I mean, not only with Germany, I mean, we're talking this morning as well. I think with any national team, we see it here. Turkey, we were talking with Polish Prince, Poland, you name it, every national team, there's a lot of politics involved.
Yeah, so much politics.
Who makes the team. And it's one thing to be, have a squad and, within your financial limits or whatever, and you have like a squad that you got to work with, and you know what you're going into it with. and no tinkering afterwards. Now it's your team. This is the team you have, as opposed to the national team atmosphere where politics are constantly changing, right? Like, oh, you should probably call that guy. He's an old timer kind of a thing, and it's not by form. I mean, look at national teams around. There are so many players chosen. Look at England. I mean, I know US has the same thing. I know Turkey has the same thing, where there are players that are not playing for their clubs or they're not in good form, but they get selected based on.
Or they're in Saudi Arabia.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
or maybe Jordan Henderson. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, he's getting killed, slated in Southgate. And you'd think like Southgate, England hadn't done anything in 100 years. They hadn't even been able to get out of their own way with a collection of great, great talent. Like a better generation than this failed on the international level because they had terrible managers. This guy's only gotten them to a Euro final, a World Cup semi, and then another Euro semi. And like they still shit on him for his lineup selection, but he goes out there and he starts Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson on the weekend instead of blooding in players that are like young and playing at the top level. And Henderson was abysmal. I mean, it was literally Henderson was as poor as I've ever seen. When they score the goal, he's literally like looks like he's jogging in the desert, like he still thinks he's in Saudi Arabia, like running down the wing. I mean, it's really, really poor, and you can almost see it. And it probably, unfortunately for him, it's probably his last performance for England with the national team, because I don't know that Southgate will be able to call him back in again. Like it was that poor for him.
But that's the thing. There's a lot of other factors that goes into that. That's like my point. I think that will not work with Klopp either. Like the constant tinkering with what you're going to do. It's one thing to say, no, you can't afford him. This is what you can afford. You're like, okay, that's fine. We'll go in with this squad. And now you know what you're going to have for the next 6 months or whatever. And it's not constantly changing on you. I don't think he does not look like the kind of personality that's going to like constant tinkering coming from the powers that be kind of a deal. It looks more like an independent. That's why, I figured like I run it by you guys too, but I think we're all in agreement that it's not happening anytime soon. Everybody was talking about, when his contract is over. I almost feel like even then it's not happening for some time unless he goes and, he gets sick of the grandkid and wants to come back or something like that. So let's get back to the league. Obviously, before the next international break, we'll have these 4 games: Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham, Brighton. The last 2 are away. We're only home actually for like the West Ham game, right? And then we come back with Derby on the 21st. So out of these potential 12 points over here, Bickler, what do you expect? Obviously, we would want 12, but what would you be happy with? Aside from 12.
I probably think that 9 is a decent number out of that. I'm probably happy with 9, but I could see us easily. I mean, I could see us dropping points in 2 of those. So, yeah.
Which way? The last 2 away games? Or
yeah, Tottenham and Brighton are the ones I'm looking at. But, I mean, West Ham is playing great football too. I mean, those are not easy fixtures. They're really not. So, yeah, I'm probably happy with 3 or 4 there.
No, it's kind of shitty because really the only easy fixture on paper looks like the Wolves game, but that's like the freaking early game when we come back from the international break. So
and they always
like
play
a brutal timing for
tough.
it too. So that kind of like eliminates that. How about you, Gally? Brian says 10 points would be great. I mean, obviously, we're always going to talk about keeping pace with like City and stuff like that, but you got to kind of like do your own thing on the side and get as many points as you want. You can. What is a solid? Because when we were talking last week, we said 10 out of 12. Despite you could have probably gotten the extra 2 points at Chelsea, maybe, but 10 out of 12 we were happy with. What would make you happy when we talk next international break?
Yeah, I'm going to be happy with 9 points out of the 12 there. I would love to get the 10. I mean, I'd love to get 12, but that's, asking to win 4 more on the bounce. Knowing that we have midweek games every single week during that time and the way we've been playing, it just seems unrealistic. If you gave me a guaranteed 9 right now, I'd sign off on it and I'd take it. And I wouldn't even question where the loss is. I'd be like, I don't care if we lose to Wolves as long as we get the other 3 wins, right? But I do think the manner in which they play is really important. If they were to get 2 victories and 2 draws, but play well through it and come away with 8 out of 12 points there, I could even be okay with that. Because that's still leaving you with 18 out of 24. And let's be honest, coming into this start of this season, if any one of us were guaranteed 18 of our first 24 points, knowing the fixtures were the way they were with Newcastle and Villa and Brighton and Tottenham and Chelsea, and 5 of those on the road, 4 of those 5 on the road, we would have signed off and said, okay, I'll take 18 points all day long. So if you could give me 19 or even 20 points out of 24, I think we're really cooking with gas. And I think we have a legitimate shot to do it, because I do think that we're able to score goals. And I think this league lacks goal scoring. And I think that's ultimately what is going to be what propels us to the top 4 or top 5 that we need to get into Champions League next year, is purely the fact that we are going to score enough goals, in my opinion, and the rest of the league isn't.
That's fair. And then when you look back, I mean, I think, I was like thinking about this as I was like coming up with the question, and I'm like, yeah, I think 9 I would be okay with. 8, I guess, but I think the part mainly goes to this. This is after we come back from the next international break. While on paper it looks pretty darn solid, those 4 league games we're going to play, I'm always afraid, Bickler, to count 3 points from this team, because we've seen us play down to the level of competition. Does the 8 out of 12 sound okay, thinking we can easily do 12 out of 12 on this when we get back from the other international break?
I think Allie's points, if this team is going to hinge on scoring goals, which it should because it's its strength, I feel good about those fixtures. Yeah. Like, you have to.
So you are okay with 8 out of 12 as well?
Yeah, I am. I think that's a really, really tough run. That first month and a half of the season, those fixtures are brutal.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, like when you come back and you have those 4 games, and it goes back to like 8 out of 12, if you can make that, like make that 20 afterwards, then yeah, you're in good shape if you do 20 out of 24 afterwards. So let's focus on the Wolves game real quick. I know there's a lot of questions, especially for the back 4. But I think we have a clearer picture in terms of who's available, at least, Gally, for the midfield and the front line. Who are you putting there?
I would expect the midfield to be the same midfield as we saw against Villa, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's the same front 3 that we saw. I think that we see Jones, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Mo, Nunez, and Diaz. That's my gut. Now, Diaz and Nunez are coming back from South America. You never know when they're going to play again, when their flights come in. It's a lunchtime kickoff. So maybe the South American travel gives Jota or even Gakpo a little bit of an advantage. But I think, all things being equal, I think it would be the same. I think it's the same lineup that ended the match against Villa, personally, like something along that line.
I agree with that. How about the back 4? Like, if Trent is healthy, I mean, I guess that it automatically fills itself. But if Trent is not going to be available, how do you sort that?
I think you got to play the kid and Matip, and you play Gomez at right back. I don't think you play, some academy kid at right back. I think you don't have a backup right back. So your backup right back is your 3rd best center back. So your 5th best center back decides to play, because I just can't imagine Konate is there, or we'd hear about it or see pictures of him in training. But maybe I'm totally wrong, and Konate's ready to play, and it's, Konate and Matip and Gomez back there.
Well, let me throw this at you guys then. We'll start with you, Beckler. Would you consider something like, would you rather play the kid at center back because you're pushing Gomez out, or would you rather, for example, play Costas or on the right, or Robertson on the right, and put Costas where he's playing?
No, I'm not playing either of those.
That's not an option.
But I'm putting the kid in center back. I think we saw an entire 2-month span of what happens when you try to play around the center back position with players that shouldn't be there. So, like, my PTSD will say that we're through with that. I'm starting the kid. I think he looked great last time we saw him. Let's hope that he keeps over from Horning, sort of overshooting. And I'm playing the kid for sure.
I mean, I've only seen Wolves once, like in full, I should say, and that was like the United game, and they could really counter well and create, but they couldn't score to save their lives, is what it looked like in that game. And obviously, they got robbed when Onana assaulted like two guys in the box, and they did not get their penalty. But it is a team that has trouble scoring. Who are you putting in midfield and the front line, then, Bickler?
I'm playing the same lineup that I did versus Villa. I really am. I think that this team needs to continue to build on that cohesion. And I think it is the best lineup available right now. I think you got to snowball league points while you can.
Well, prediction time, kids. Gally, let's start with you. What are you seeing in this game?
I'm going to go 2-0 good guys. Team can't score. Wolves, no goal. No bueno, no goals.
Bickler, what do you have?
Man, I was going to go 2-0. I'll go, let's be optimistic. I'll go 3-0. I like that 2-0 scoreline, but I'll go 3-0 with like a late garbage time goal.
I like the 3-0 as well, like a comfortable clean sheet, which is really scary that we're all like predicting a clean sheet over here. This is just like a recipe for disaster. I'm probably going to ask you guys this question in another month or so. Brian is going with 3-0 too. Yeah, we're all freaking doomed.
Wolves are going to have the game of their life. We're done. Yep.
I mean, Portugal has beaten two teams in the last two matches. I think Portugal's won about 17-0 during this international break. They're still scoring goals against Gibraltar. Then again, it is a country full of rocks on a hill. But they scored 9 goals today. Pretty sure Ronaldo jumped up and did one of his like huge fucking celebrations up 8-0, and he wasn't even playing. He just ran up to do the fucking celebration. But so at least the Wolves guys will be feeling good about their homeland, the fact that Portugal played as well as they did. So hopefully that'll just be a little less. They're doing too much celebrating during this international break.
They work the goals out of their system, hopefully.
Exactly.
5-0 says Kazim, Mr. Optimist over here with the Jota hat trick. I'm assuming he's thinking Jota.
It makes sense because Adama Traore is not there anymore, so we'll probably get.
Yeah, I know he has to be depressed. So let me ask you guys this, and I'll probably ask you guys this probably in the next international break as well. For Liverpool, as things stand right now, Gally, give me one player that has to really perform well above what we normally would expect to keep us in a title run. If you had to pick one player to get their best season, who would you pick?
Well, I mean, I think that I've said it before. I mean, I think we need our offensive players to hit like full optimum. So we know what we get out of Mo. We're starting to see what we get out of Darwin. I think we need all the glitz and all the stardust that comes with Luis Diaz's like highlight reel performances to turn into results on the pitch, like actual goal involvements, goals and assists. Because if I think he's the one who could step to a new level and like put himself like right below like the Mo type level. I think he can make that kind of an impact on the pitch. And if we could get something like that on the left-hand side of our attack and have Darwin kind of coming into his own in the front, I think we get back to the heights of like the big three of what we had before, where we knew what we were getting day in and day out. So for me, I'll say Diaz because I think it's a little too easy to focus on one of the midfielders, but that's where I'd go.
Bickler.
For me, it's Konate. He needs to be healthy. He needs to be durable. He needs to be available. And I think he needs to take that back line to the next level. Honorary mention, I'd say Ali, because like when we look at this side, right, we talk about how prolific it is, but like the defense is its liability, right? Mm-hmm. So if like we don't have center backs, Ali's got to be massive. And if we have center back play, it's got to be Konate taking this back line to the next level.
Yeah, Brian says Mo. Actually, I was going to go with Mo too, because I think that front line will go as far as Mo will like drag him. Mo, that's in his peak. I still feel like he still is not peak Mo, if you will. Like when he's going one-on-one, like some of those like moves that he does, that was a lot more fluid It feels like he's rushing things. Back to a confident Mo, I think will automatically. And I know what Gally is saying in terms of, we kind of know what we get from there, and would be awesome to kind of like elevate the other side too. But I think if you elevate your right hand side back to his peak form, the rest automatically would come with it. Cosgrove says we have the second best defense in the league. I think in the long run, we
don't though. Not if you're not. I mean, you're looking at goals conceded, but if you look at XG and like what we're giving up, it's mid-table. Allie has bailed us out for like 2 years now.
Yes, I mean that's the thing. I mean, without that, I don't know where we are. To be honest with you, I mean, we were talking about this last week in terms of our like 10 out of 12 by itself. So this week we have Gally traveling. So how long are you going to be gone there, Gally?
Just till Saturday. We'll be back Saturday morning.
So you'll be watching the game there?
Yep, we're gonna watch the game there. It'll probably be like that morning, watching it at the hotel, and then I think I can go to the airport like a half hour after the match. So I'll watch it from the hotel, check it out, and then I'll be back with you guys to talk about it Monday night.
Safe travels to you, and us freaking losers will get stuck where we're at. I mean, I'm the only loser.
But I got to fly the following week, so it's not a big deal. It's for work. It's nothing cool.
Bigler is always traveling. I will hopefully get back on the road soon over here. But yes, Saturday morning, bright and early pre-match, gentlemen. Are you guys gonna set the alarms and get up in the crack of dawn for the pre-match this Saturday? Big Gally's
not. Why not? I'll be around.
I'll kill Gally.
I was gonna say I'm gonna be in a hotel room, so I'll probably be up either way. But I ain't running no show from it. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, we'll be back for the pre-match. That's for sure. I don't know who will be awake. It'll be worse than the morning coffee show in terms of like the amount of coffee that's going to be consumed in that show. But yeah, we'll be back for the pre-match. Obviously, before then, we have a ton of shows. The Thursday crew is going to be back. The fantasy is back this week, correct?
Yeah, I think Matush is going to run the fantasy show. He may tap somebody else from the crew to jump in, or I might just jump in with like a recorded video. Talk about how poorly my team is doing and how good my wife's team's doing. That's really the reason we didn't want to do a fantasy show last week. My wife decided to go ahead and drop a 106 and move up like 1.1 million places in 1 week. I did not. So there was no reason for us to highlight that action. So hopefully she'll have a terrible week. I'll have a good week. And by the time I come back a week from Thursday, there'll be a reason to do that program again, but most likely not, because
Bigler, I think this is a great opportunity for you to jump on the fantasy show and let the people know your secrets.
Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for the game. It would do not only the Premier League game itself, it would do us a huge service to have me on there talking about things I don't know about.
Or I can jump on there, and I think Cancelo is available at very, very low prices. So he's out there. Go ahead and grab him while you can before he's actually taken out of the game, probably for good. But we'll be back Wednesday morning for sure with the morning coffee show. Do not forget that we do have the contest going on until the end of this month. If you have not done so already, head over to YouTube over there and give us a follow and get entered into the drawing. Have an awesome week, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.